Anthony Weiner is insisting today that he will not resign despite growing pressure from his so-called friends in the Democratic Party. Congressman Weiner told a New York reporter, quote, "I betrayed a lot of people and I know it, and I'm trying to get back to work now and try to make amends to my constituents and, of course, to my family." He also said flat out that he will not resign. But at least 9 Democrats in Congress are now calling on him, of course, to step down. In fact, it seems some Democrats are going out of their way to denounce him.
In some ways, just a huge disappointment. I really am just. It's hard on all of us to see this happen to Anthony, and something he brought on himself. And again, I find it appalling and inappropriate behavior. It's inexcusable.
Look, I know what some say. Weiner's actions are difficult to defend and that we should just force him out and move on. It's a distraction. This is not the right fight. But for Democrats, doesn't it always seem like it's never the right time to fight? Couldn't we fight once at some point? For me, I'd like to fight right now. So without further ado, Cenk's rules on Fight Club. Here's how you deal with a tough situation like Weiner. First of all, revolutionary idea. You defend your own. Okay? That's what the Republicans do all the time. If Democrats attack on any given issue, on any given candidate, we know what the Republicans do. They circle the wagons and they fight back. The Democrats, what do? They circle the wagons and kick the guy out. Well, that's not going to help you keep that guy in power or to have a situation where, you know what? There's some degree of unity and there's some belief that you'll stick together. The second thing you could do is you can attack. So, for example, when Vitter and Ensign, et cetera, had their troubles, especially Vitter, how long did the Democrats talk about it? For about a week, and then they let it go. I mean, you've got Tim Kaine, who used to run the DNC, attacking Weiner right now. Where were you when you were the head of the DNC? Why didn't you go ballistic attacking Republicans? Marshmallow Tim Kaine doesn't know how to do it. Finally, here's another idea. Counterattack. So when they say, oh, Weiner's bad, here's what you do. You say, how about Vitter? Okay? Now, Vitter was worse. He broke laws. He was with a hooker. And, you guys gave him a standing ovation. He is worse. So let's practice. They say Weiner, you say Vitter. Say it with me. They say Weiner, you say Vitter. Okay? It's like you got to teach these guys. They never fight back. It isn't about Weiner. Okay, what he did is wrong. Everybody gets it on a personal level, etc. But at some point, you got to fight back. All right, I am clear on it. Let's have a conversation now. Josh Green is senior political editor for The Atlantic. He wrote today, Anthony Weiner should resign. Okay, now Josh, of course, is not with the Democratic Party, so what I said does not apply to him. He's writing his opinion as an analyst. So, Josh, let's have a conversation about that. First, about the Democrats, okay? Doesn't it send a message that whenever the Republicans have a problem, the Democrats attack a little bit, and then they say, okay, just let it go. And whenever the Democrats have a problem, the Democrats throw themselves under a bus.
I think the problem here is that if Democrats want to fight, they ought to fight about policy. They ought to fight about Medicare. They ought to fight about deficit spending. They ought to fight for some stimulus, for one thing. But it doesn't make sense to fight over a guy like this who has destroyed his own career, who's embarrassed his party, and who is sticking around despite everyone's desire that he leave, including the people in his own party.
Well, look, there's a couple of things there. First of all, they always tell me about how they're going to keep their powder dry. I mean, for 8 years with Bush, I heard about, oh, no, we got to keep the powder dry. Oh, you wait till you see the fight later. And I never saw it. Never saw it. Whether it's on issues, I agree with you. I wish they'd fight 10 times harder on issues. Okay, and that's much more important. But on the substance of Weiner here, I also just flat out disagree. So you tell me, Josh, what's the big crime? I mean, I get it's embarrassing. Oh my God, well, it's a crotch job.
First of all, I don't think you even need to look at it as a partisan issue. The guy has embarrassed himself. He's embarrassed the U.S. Congress. People, especially congressmen, but also Democratic and Republican partisans, tend to think of a seat in Congress as an entitlement. It's not an entitlement. It's an honor. You're a public servant. You're there to do work, to pass laws. Weiner isn't a guy who's going to be capable of doing that anymore. I mean, he's looked at. He's a punchline. He's dominated the news for 2 weeks.
Josh.
And he ought to step down and get somebody else in that seat. And for partisans, they don't have to worry the Republicans are going to win that seat. It's a heavily Democratic district.
All right, Josh, couple of things. All right, first of all, you talk about honor. Which of these guys have honor? I mean, come on, really. I mean, I've been covering politics a long time. You think the rest of them are honorable?
Yeah, I actually do. I think a lot of congressmen, the majority of congressmen, come to work. And you, as a liberal of all people, should not be laughing at government. And, people like Anthony Weiner undermine Americans' faith in government. And if liberals were smart, they would get him out of there. They would get somebody in there who's going to do what liberals want done,
Josh,
which is protect Medicare, get some stimulus passed, and keep the focus on Republicans, not on Twitter.
Here's what I'm embarrassed by. That a great majority of our congressmen and our senators are bought by corporations, okay? They take money in campaign contributions, and then they do whatever the hell the corporations tell them to do. You know who I'm eternally embarrassed by? Evan Bayh. When he was in office, he was, I'm a centrist. And what corporations, what do you need me to do? What do you need me to sell out on? And then immediately he steps out of office and becomes a lobbyist for Chamber of Commerce and works for Fox News Channel. I couldn't be more embarrassed over Evan Bayh and all the so-called centrist Democrats, okay? I'm not embarrassed that Anthony Weiner was horny. I don't care. You know who else is like that? Everybody else in Congress. They didn't get caught. Who cares?
But the rest of them most of the rest of them can control themselves, and they can pass laws, and they can talk about serious issues of public policy, and they're not out there, dominating the headlines and stepping on the political debate with their own, indiscretions and silly behavior. So I don't see any reason why Weiner should stick around. I also don't see any way that Democrats are going to get him out of there. But I think you ought to step down for the good of Congress.
One last thing. Again, on the substance of this, you keep saying like he can't continue to legislate, et cetera. Why not? I mean, how does this affect his views on the 9/11 responder bill, which he was heroic in fighting for their health care? So now that he was sending dirty pictures while he was doing that, do you think, that doesn't count? That was no good. The victory there just doesn't count. It's no bad.
I think he's ultimately been harmful for the Democrats because he has further undermined people's faith in government and people's faith in the Democratic Party. Ugh. And Democrats would be better off replacing him with someone a little more honorable who would go in and fight for exactly the kinds of things you're talking about.
I wish you could find an honorable politician for me. I'd love to get behind that guy. Okay.
I could introduce you to plenty of them, and liberals shouldn't be as cynical as you are about government. Really?
Josh, name 3 for me.
Henry Waxman, it's the 30th anniversary of AIDS. Waxman was one of the first people who pushed congressional federal research funding through it. Ed Markey, if you want to take another Northeasterner. All sorts of people, I think, in the New York delegation. I think Chuck Schumer. There's a guy who is like Anthony Weiner in the sense that he can go on TV. He can push for these things. He's an effective public advocate, and at least so far as we know, he's not making a fool of himself on Twitter.
Okay. Chuck Schumer takes an enormous amount of money from Wall Street. Now, he's the senator from New York. I get it. That's why he does it. Okay, but and does he represent Wall Street well? Oh, you bet he does. Okay, I'll take Anthony Weiner over Chuck Schumer any day. I don't care what pictures they're sending out. All right, but we are clear. Josh, I really appreciate you coming on and talking about this. It was definitely an interesting conversation. Everybody, Josh Green, senior political editor for The Atlantic. Thank you, Josh.
Good to be with you.